Just before proceeding to the Employment Equality Pay Transparency Bill 2022, I must inform the House that earlier this afternoon I received a request from Minister Niall to make a personal statement pursuant to Standing Order 56 in relation to a particular planning matter, and I understand Mr Collins is here to do that now.
Can I just say something on a point of order?
Oh, you can, yes.
Thanks, Councillor. I know this is at your gift, yes, but the Business Committee met this morning and there was no indication given that this slot would be taken later on today. Now, I welcome the fact that Minister Collins is in here to give an explanation, but one, I think it would be better if the Business Committee had been informed and if the Minister would have been prepared to take questions and answers.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mitchell. The fact of the matter is that a request under Standing Order 56 has nothing whatsoever to do with the Business Committee. It's none of its business. It's a matter for whoever occupies the chair. We didn't receive the request until this afternoon, so the Business Committee was well over. When I made the decision that we would facilitate the statement, I instructed the Secretariat to inform the members of the Business Committee, and indeed I think all the members of the House may have been advised, as was appropriate. Certainly the Business Committee was advised. So, Mr Collins.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. I wish to address the misleading and inaccurate contents of a recent article in relation to a planning application for my family home, which I made as a private citizen 23 years ago. I'm happy to clarify the position to the Dáil today. In 2001, while a private citizen, I engaged a local architect and planning agent to submit a planning application for me on land that my family owned in Patrickswell. I had acquired a house near Limerick City with my wife in 1999, 2 years earlier. I wished to move closer to my parents, who were advancing in age, to be near to them, to help them and to support them in any way I could. I hoped also that I could rear my own family in an area where I had lived most of my life. My home area of Patrickswell was deemed to be in the pressure area as designated by the 1999 Limerick County Development Plan, which was the overarching planning policy document and upon which planning decisions were made at the time. The decision on my planning application for my new home near my parents would be based on the policy contained in the 1999 Limerick County Development Plan, which clearly stated that any person who lived in the pressure area prior to 1990 was eligible to be granted permission. I was eligible in accordance with the planning criteria, and I appointed a local architect to compile and submit the application on my behalf. The 1999 Limerick County Development Plan states the following, and I'm quoting, "Pressure areas. Taking the policy considerations outlined under General Settlement Policy into account, residential development within the pressure area will only be allowed in the following cases. That which is necessary for agriculture or related rural activities and for long-term resident landholders. Dwellings for sons and daughters of these categories will also be permitted. Dwellings for applicants who are working in essential rural activities. Any person who has lived in the pressure area prior to 1990. Where an old or derelict dwelling is being reconstructed in sympathy with its existing character, or where an old building of character is being restored or reused as a dwelling." End of quotation. I clearly met the planning criteria on two grounds, by virtue of being the son of a long-term resident landholder and having lived in the pressure area prior to 1990. The matter of whether I owned a house with my wife near Limerick City, which was outside the pressure area, was not an issue of consideration or policy at the time under that county development plan, and whether I had stated that or not was immaterial to the planning adjudication process 23 years ago. The house I owned on the Father Russell Road in Duradoyle was not in the pressure area. In 2004, I was elected as a councillor to Limerick County Council, and thereafter the council introduced a new planning policy in relation to housing need. I was first elected to Dáil Éireann in 2007. This housing need factor, i.e. whether you owned a house or not, referred to in the article only came into a new county development plan policy for County Limerick in 2004. This was 3 years after my planning application was submitted. My planning application was submitted 3 years before I became a local public representative. Therefore, the statement by the publishers of the article that, and I quote, applicants who already owned a home in the area would be unsuccessful, end of quote, and to suggest that my planning application in 2001 was not valid or did not meet the planning criteria is entirely factually incorrect and inaccurate. What was the most material factor in my planning application was that I had lived in Patrickswell for some 28 years, and most importantly, prior to 1990. Also, my parents continued to live there throughout that time. Therefore, I was therefore compliant with the criteria set out in the 1999 Limerick County Development Plan. The planning application was in the name of Niall Collins, as was the site notice and the newspaper advertisement of the planning application, and in all my correspondence on the planning file. The planning permission was granted in the name of Niall Collins. Yesterday, I examined the full planning file at the offices of Limerick City and County Council, and all of these documents are clearly on file and are available for inspection. I learned for the first time earlier this week that an advertisement published in the Limerick Leader newspaper on the 28th of April 2001 in relation to a planning application in the name of a Niall O'Connor, I was not aware of this advertisement before this week. The correct and only advertisement that I authorised at any time was that published in the Limerick Leader on the 12th of May 2001. It is the only advertisement on the planning file at Limerick City and County Council and is clearly in my name, Niall Collins. All of this is available for inspection by anyone on the planning file at Limerick City and County Council. I am entirely satisfied that my planning application 23 years ago for my family home met the correct planning criteria and was correctly adjudicated upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We move now to the Employment Equality Pay Transparency Bill, and I call on Deputy Rose Conway Walsh or Deputy Pa Daly to move that the bill be read a second time.
I so move.
Okay.